All right, we're going to get started here. Let me just get full screen going. And I really want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time out of your day to attend today's webinar, Lighting is Everything. My name is Kevin Casey. I am the Customer Experience Manager at Collages, and I will be hosting the webinar along with a very special guest presenter, Brian Kent. Brian is the owner of ABM Wedding Photography located in San Diego, California. And thanks so much for joining us today, Brian. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Kevin. Thank you.
Awesome. So we're really happy to have you on board hosting today. We have some really eager photographers wanting to hear what you have to say. But before we jump into the webinar, just want to do a little house maintenance here and show you how to use the webinar program. If this is your first webinar, you'll notice the window on the right-hand side is for the webinar program. So at any time, if you need to ask any questions because you are muted, feel free to use the chat feature, and I will be handling all questions that are coming in while Brian is talking. And throughout the webinar, I'll be collecting questions for a live Q&A at the end, and also trying to answer as many questions as I can while Brian's talking, just so we can get all of the information out. I know he has a lot to talk about. Now, before we actually also jump into the webinar, wanted to let you guys know that we will be at Texas School in Dallas, Texas this coming Sunday through May 1st. We'll actually be there the 27th through the 1st. But we actually have 2 scholarships up for grabs to Steve Winslow's course. It's an intermediate wedding class at Texas School. The scholarship includes the class, access to general events, and dinner each evening. The recipient will need to provide their own travel to the school in Dallas, room, breakfast, and lunch. So if you are in the Dallas area next week and are interested in signing up for this scholarship, by all means, let me know through the chat feature, and we can try to get that set up. But once again, there's a few things you'll have to do for yourself. It's just basically getting there, and after that, you'll be able to jump into the class. This is part 1 and part 2, basically just talking about what will be talked about in Steve Winslow's course. Also, if you haven't had time to try Collages digital brag books, now is definitely the time. We offer more ways to make more money with mobile apps. If you aren't familiar with digital brag books, you can upload the images in a matter of minutes. You can share the images with your customers as soon as the gallery is live. And as soon as the gallery goes live, you can increase your sales immediately because you'll be able to get these images onto your customers' phones. So, Brian, I'm going to actually pass the screen sharing over to you, and we'll let you get started here.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. All right. Kevin, can you see the screen, full screen? Show my screen. Okay.
All right. We can see it.
Perfect. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining today. And before we dive into this material, Lighting is Everything, I want to just send a quick notification out to people about Google's new policy as far as mobile-friendly sites. This is something that I spent last night till 1 o'clock in the morning and this morning finalizing. If your site is not mobile-friendly, you will start to get penalized with search engine optimization and searches in general. It's something that Google put out a little while ago, so you guys are probably aware of it, and you may have been getting spammed even more lately with SEO companies offering mobile sites. I know we have, even more than normal. So just a little side note, you could always go to Google and type in Google it, and they'll analyze the site and tell you yes or no, pass, fail. So it's something that's pretty important there. But anyway, let's talk about something a little more interesting than Google. Lighting is everything. So I want to start off with a quick story about how an 87-year-old man with Alzheimer's changed my life. It really did. So my mentor's mentor has been doing photography since the age of gunpowder flash, or whatever they called that ammonia stuff. And so my mentor is about 55. His mentor has passed away. His name is Tom Smith. When I met him, he was 87, and I was 25, I believe. And he had terrible Alzheimer's at that point. and it was really sad because he couldn't tell you the day of the week, who was president. He couldn't really tell you much of anything, but I went up to him one day and I asked him, I said, hey, Tom, what kind of lighting do you look for when you go out to a venue to shoot a portrait session or a wedding? And before he couldn't say a single thing about the president day of week, sometimes his wife's name he would forget. He said right away to me, backlight with a dark background, as if it was tattooed into his cerebellum. And so that really was striking to me on so many levels. And so I took that and thought, okay, if this guy can't remember anything else about his life except for a backlight with a dark background, I thought this is something that I should probably try to remember myself. So I ran with that, and so that was my mentor's mentor that told me that. And my mentor, basically, from that point on, taught me how to do that. And so let's get right in here to the material. Lighting is everything. It really separates the good from the bad from the good and the good from the great. I mean, it's one of the single things I look at when we're looking at second shooters and other photographers for our studio, the lighting, because as you know, it's one of the few things you can't fix in post. That and maybe some blur, slow shutter speed blur. Those are the two things that we hark on with our second shooters. And myself, when I was starting out, was just you have to pick the right lighting. It makes a huge difference. We'll go through this kind of quick because I want to get to the photos and the material. But lighting choices are a vital element to any photographer's style. It is. It's really true. I mean, that really dictates how the photo is going to look in the end. I mean, you could always add filters, vintage filters, black and white, saturation, clarity, the whole gamut. But really, lighting choices will dictate a lot of the photographer's style. So I have a really simple system as far as when I go to a venue, whether it's my first time or my 100th time at a venue. I just have an ambient light pecking order, and I think of it like that. I have an order of preference that I'm looking for all the different shots. So starting with, as far as I'm getting ready, usually it's in a room, hotel room, or hallway, or house, and then of course the bridal portraits with the bridesmaids, family photos, romantics throughout the day, and I just look at the venue. If it's, let's assume it's all at one location, just for example's sake, I'll go, okay, this is a good spot for bridal portraits. This is a good spot for bridesmaids with the bride. This is a good spot for family. This is a good spot for romantics. And I just plan it out. So I have a pecking order, and it always starts with backlight. Always, always, without a doubt. I just look around. If I can't find backlight, then I go to my next one, which we'll talk about in a second, but I look for the backlight. I even have an app on my phone. I think it even came on my phone. It talks about, it's a compass app, where it says, okay, this is west, east. All I care about is west because the sun sets on the west coast here in California. And so I look, okay, so this west is pointing this direction. So at sunset or around sunset, the sun will be right there. So even if I'm getting there in the middle of the day around noon, and at that point it is tough to tell where the good light's going to be at sunset or near sunset, but you could always look with that app, or it's just an easy, quick way to figure out the direction of the light. And so I'll think about the whole day right when I get there. And the sun does change its angle through different seasons. Not a whole lot, but I've noticed to be a significant difference. So whether I'm shooting someplace in the summer or the winter, things do change a little bit as far as locations. But with that being said, without a doubt, I'm looking for backlight every single time, number one. We'll talk about why in a moment after this list. Directional open shade. So open shade and directional open shade are two different things. We always are looking for directional open shade. So that's an area where there is shade from building, tree, hallway, archway, window, and we're just getting the shade that's coming from a certain direction. Definitely not from above. If you're getting light from above, it's almost as bad as noonday light. It's not as bad, it's not as harsh as the sun, but it's still coming from a bad direction. So we want it from the side and a little bit above their head. And then open area fill flash. I hate open area fill flash. This is my third choice. So I'm always looking for backlight, the directional open shade, and then if I can't find open area, if I can't find backlight or open shade, then I resort to open area fill flash. That's you've seen a million shots and done a million shots of these. That's just out in a big field or on the beach where there's no shade. It's too early in the day for good backlight at any point. and you just are just shooting in bare sun. It's terrible. It's harsh. The fill flash is the only way to do it, preferably off camera. So backlight, why do I love backlight? Why does Tom Smith, the guy that couldn't remember the president, love backlight so much? The rim light it creates is stunning. The separation that it creates, angelic glow, loads of dimension and depth to the image. We'll look at images in a moment, but we'll talk specifically about that. Foliage pops when it's backlit. I love not only taking photos with backlit foliage, I love just looking and being around foliage when it's backlit. It has that feel, that texture, that it's hard to even put into words, but we've all seen when the sun's coming through a row of trees or large bushes from behind when it's backlit. It has an incredible pop, an incredible feel to it. Your face and body is naturally relaxed when facing away from the sun. You could try this yourself, and you have probably hundreds of times where you're looking at the sun without sunglasses, of course, because we're not shooting our couples with sunglasses. It's terrible. You just squinting. It doesn't feel right, but you turn your back to it, and you have that sun, that warm sun hitting your back. It just feels good, and it's naturally relaxing. So we find that our clients tend to relax more in that situation. Another thing, too, is I'm not a real big fan of reflectors. I know that might be a sinful statement for a lot of people, but my philosophy on that, I don't think they're bad. They do their job well. They're just cumbersome to have an assistant help with it, or a bridesmaid that doesn't know what they're doing. You have to teach them in the moment, hold it like this, angle like this, and they still don't get it right always. So I'm trying to usually look for situations and places where I don't need a reflector. I oftentimes don't even carry one. Sometimes I do, depending on the venue and the situation. This first image right here, this is no reflector, this is no flash, this is straight ambient as it gets. It's kind of a open shade backlight. You can see a little bit of a rim light on her shoulders, both shoulders, and a little bit of her hair. She has blonde hair, so it's not quite as obvious, but you can see a little bit on her off her left eye. So this is just real simple. This is not the greatest of all photos, but as far as lighting goes and the foliage in the background, that's that pop that I love, that backlit foliage. Obviously the bokeh looks really good. This is probably with the real long lens, 70-200, most likely closer to 200, maybe 135 to 200, something like that. And so that's got great bokeh. That foliage looks great. Putting the bride on the spot where it's brightest behind her, so kind of the glow is focused on her, and then it gets darker on the edges. That's done in camera, not in post. Obviously exaggerated with the vignette in post, probably a little bit. But yeah, anyway, so there's no reflector, there's no fill flash. That is straight ambient, soft, subtle backlight. In situation, like I said, I just look, I go around and I look where I can find good backlight. This is another example. Basic photo, nothing fancy going on with these shots, but the background there is a tall bush area. This is out in Los Angeles at Paramount Ranch. And we have a couple, you get a little bit of the highlight. She has more brown hair, and you can see the highlight on her top of her head, clearly, a little bit on his head as well. That little bit of highlight on the top of the hair creates that separation. Again, the bokeh looks great as well. Lighting on their face is clean. There's no harsh shadows or pockets of light. It's exactly what you're looking for, or what I'm looking for every single time I go out on a shoot. This is textbook. When I saw this location, this is a spot that I saw in the middle of the day, and I used that app on my phone to figure out where the sun would be when it was near sunset. Saw that the west was this direction, so I knew the sun would be setting behind these bushes at sunset. So it was really easy for me to plan this out and go, okay, this is where I'm going to go later today. And sure enough, when we went out there later after the ceremony, it was just popping off. Beautiful glow, backlight. Love it. This is just some, again, this is probably doesn't illustrate the best as far as backlight goes, kind of. Basically, it is backlight with the sun back there in a grove of bamboo trees. I love bamboo in general. It's one of the coolest plants, in my opinion. I love doing shots in there. We have a number of portfolio shots from brides and grooms and sessions in bamboo. But you can see how she is being backlit there. There is the sun hitting the back of her head, and their veil is glowing. She has nice, soft, even light on her face and front of her. Again, the light is popping through that foliage and creating that nice color. There aren't too many blown highlights. Some people might say the stuff on the ground and where the sun is popping through is a blown highlight. I'm not too concerned with blown highlights. I care more about the overall feel of the image. We don't even use the recover highlight tool on everything. Sometimes I let those highlights go, and I'm totally fine with it. And that works well with being a backlight shooter, because when you are shooting backlight all the time, you do get a so-called problem with some of the blown highlights, but I don't find it a problem. I care more about the subject and the overall feel. So this is just a nice shot, wide-angle shot. All of my all-time life, one of them, top 5 probably. Basically, here we have out in the desert. This is the Palm Desert area, and in California, and you have nice backlight. I mean, the shot obviously is the hair and how wild it is and how unpredictable it was. And truthfully, we weren't even going for this sort of a shot. We were going for a traditional, normal, smiling, not hair in the face shot. And it was blowing so hard out there, we just couldn't do it. So we just let it go. But again, we have the backlight. The ground is a sand tan color, so you're not going to get the best separation because it's rather light, but you still see on her shoulder, you get that separation on her hair as well, and a little bit on his head too, right where his head is touching her forehead. You see the nice highlight there, and again, that just creates great separation. Here we go. This is kind of your standard backlight, my standard backlight shot. This is a grove of trees. There's a walkway behind this couple, and you have the sun coming through the trees, illuminating the trees nicely. You have some nice dark areas on the sides naturally occurring just in the pockets of shade next to the bush on the right and the bush on the left. And then she's glowing like an angel. This is the angelic light that I was talking about. I mean, you got perfect light on her face and his face. Again, I'm not concerned about the blown highlights on the grounds, the sidewalk. Could care less about that. And even her veil, to be honest, looking at the overall feel and the way the light comes through the trees is gorgeous. So this is a very standard type backlight situation that I'm looking for. Another thing that I watch out for with backlight is spill on noses, foreheads. Usually it's not a big deal when you're shooting closer to sunset, but when you're shooting midday backlight, that becomes a problem, and that's when you start having to add fill flash. If you get spill on the tip of the nose, since the nose extends from the face, it's always the last thing to get completely shaded with the sun. And so, but these shots that you're all looking at, these are going to be mostly later in the afternoon, closer to sunset, so it won't be an issue at all, but it's something to be aware of. Again, this is me. Backlight there, just had him walking towards, with posed in between, or positioned in between these two trees just to frame them. The trees aren't looking too great right now compared to some of the other shots, but they're glowing, they're nice. A little bit of haze in the air, and it created that really soft feel on the other grove of trees behind them, way back there and around that area. And there's just enough trees to fill so it's not completely, well, it is, the sky is blown out, but it's not completely, I would say, a mistake or error, because there's just enough of the other trees, the two trees, the dominant trees, to fill that open space. And again, the shadows that the trees create a nice little frame factor for them to stand. They're off-center on purpose. We didn't want them centered, just to make more visual appeal to it. And yeah, nice shot there. Good light. So I think we get the point about backlight. And again, my whole philosophy is that I look for that for everything. So I'm looking for places that have backlight throughout the whole day, from bridal portraits in the beginning to family photos to romantics. Anytime when there's sunlight, besides night shots, I'm looking for areas that I could utilize the backlight. Now, if there aren't any good backlight spots, then I'm going to be looking for directional open shade. It's always there. It's behind buildings. It's under thick trees. Directional open shade is everywhere. It's very common. And the key really is to make sure that you're utilizing the right part of the open shade, because that's where the directional part really comes into it. It's pretty user-friendly. What I mean by that is with backlight, you have to worry a little bit about lens flare. You have to worry a little bit about focusing. Sometimes certain camera bodies and lenses don't focus well with backlight. If you're an auto exposure shooter, which if you are, you should switch to manual exposure today or start practicing because backlight does throw off the meter, in-camera meter, and you'll get really dark subjects if you shoot auto exposure with backlight. But that's not the case with directional open shade. And that's what I mean a little bit by it's user-friendly. It's simple. It doesn't change. Even when clouds cross over and block the sun temporarily, directional open shade doesn't change a whole lot. I mean, it does get a little darker if a cloud covers the sun, but it's not the same difference as if you were outside using backlight or frontal light. So yeah, it's user-friendly, and when you have second shooters, you could tell them what setting, what exposure to put, white balance, everything stays consistent, and they could just rotate around. You can rotate around them. It's really kind of easy in that sense. Soft, always even and always flattering, but it can be flat with no accent. So that's the one downside to directional open shade, is that separation, that angelic glow that we talked about with the backlight doesn't occur with directional open shade. You do get awesome light on their face, but the one thing that makes up for it with directional open shade is that the background tends to be darker. We'll talk about it in just the next part, where to place people in open shade, but always you place them near the front of the open shade area, and light will fall off and get darker. So you don't get that angelic separation, but you do get a somewhat decent separation because the background is going to naturally fall darker. So that's another great thing about directional open shade. Directional open shade is kind of the more classic, traditional sense of portraits. You know, if you look at my mentor, his name is Luis Escobar. He utilizes directional open shade all the time, and that's kind of like the traditional or classic sense, as well as what he learned to shoot with a lot of portraits. Watch out for raccoon eyes when dominant light comes from directly above. I touched on that earlier. Same thing. New light is bad, and so new light is only bad because light comes from directly above and creates harsh shadows in people's eyes. You still get that effect sometimes with open shade, especially if you're in an area such as, let's say, a hotel lobby, and there's a skylight on the entire roof, and you're trying to shoot portraits. If you notice, you could just see it. You don't have to take a photo. You could look in and see in their eyes that you get those shadow pockets. It will be a little bit softer than if it's direct sun, but raccoon eyes are still bad, regardless whether it's soft or not. Coolest place to shoot: light, color, temperature, and actual temperature. Coolest, the light is cooler, which also means more blue or cyan. That is something that has to do with just the nature of that light. And another thing, we not only shoot auto white, or excuse me, don't shoot auto exposure and do manual exposure. I also do Kelvin, which is something that I've been doing for a long time and love. Even with shooting raw in Kelvin, because it increases the rate that we could edit photos and batch things a lot easier. So when I'm changing my exposure, I'm just changing the Kelvin temperature scale as well. That's kind of its own topic, so I won't go too far into that. But coolest place. Coolest, it's nice because on a hot day, we actually have had a really warm winter in San Diego, and the summer is supposed to be really hot. And so a lot of times we'll have weddings out in Temecula. It's just about an hour east of San Diego, basically in the desert more or less, or close to the desert, and it could get upwards of 100 degrees easily. A lot of people, I'm sure, are in Texas and other states. It's not a big deal, but we're really spoiled in San Diego, and we're not used to that. And so our brides definitely aren't either, especially on the wedding day when they have all the makeup and their big dress on. And so being in the open shade is nice because it's literally the coolest place to shoot. So anyway, put subject fairly close but not too close to the light source in a shaded area. It will create a natural darker background. So I touched on that a second ago, and there's the next part, I think. Oh no, that's a few slides from now. But basically, again, there's a hot spot, or there's a sweet spot to put people. It's about 4 to 6 feet from the opening of the open shade, and there's going to be something we'll talk about later called directional, the light fall-off effect, where the further you have them in, there's the gradient increases, so it goes from dark to light at a slower pace or a smoother pace. And then, but you also start running into having to have higher ISOs if people are too deep in the open shade. And plus, the background won't get quite as dark because you're having to open up your settings. There's a whole slide dedicated to that, but let's look at some images. Images are more fun than talking about lines. But anyway, this is directional open shade right here. This is a real pretty bride with simple pose, simple background. Not a whole lot of light accents, just detail everywhere. Very classic in that sense. Lean up against the edge of that, and you have light coming from just above that nice chin work where there's dark underneath the chin, just a little bit, but we're not getting too bad of, we're not getting really raccoon eyes at all. So this is really good directional open shade example right here. It's clean, it's simple, it's user-friendly. You could have her here, standing right here, and pretty much walk around nearly 270 degrees from all sides, and you're going to get good light from everywhere, just about. And the only place that the light would not be good is where she spun around a complete 180 and had the light where it was on her back, which it may have been okay, but I'm looking at this right now. This anywhere from camera left to camera right in the front, and a little bit on her right shoulder would be good to shoot. This is a great shot. Nice intimate moment. Again, no accents, not a lot going on. It's kind of more about the intimate moment going on right here. And you get a little bit of that directional light. You could tell it's directional because if you look at the bride's right cheek, so not right looking, but if her actual right, like her right eye, right cheek, you can see that's a little bit lighter than her left. So you can tell that the light's coming that direction. Nice, smooth, gradient, no accents anywhere, really clean stuff. This is a shot that looks like it's got multiple reflectors. There's actually just natural reflectors going on right here on the ground, and there's a wall behind me when I took this photo. And so you can see in her eyes, and that's always an indicator of what kind of light's being used, is people's eyeballs. You'll see flash spots. You'll see actual reflectors, softbox, if you use softbox or umbrella, it'll all be an eyeball for the most part. If you see some of the highlights at the bottom of her eyeballs, super close-up shot here. And yeah, this is a great lit shot. Again, directional. If you look at her left side of the face, it's wider than the right side, so you can see that it's directional. We want that. We want that dimension. It creates depth to the image. And there's a little bit of highlight on her shoulder right there, on her left and right shoulder. That's just a real soft kind of just natural backlight as well. This looks like a, I couldn't even produce the light on this image. If I had her in our studio, had 10 lights on her, I don't think I could do as good as if I found right here. To me this is perfect. And so with those pretty eyes of hers, great skin, beautiful girl, you know, this is the time where we're going to do these really nice close-up shots. I actually did a close-up for just her eyeball for in addition to this shot as well. I believe it's on our website. This is a super old photo. This thing is probably 6 years old, 5 or 6 years old at least. And again, just in a hallway inside a community house, put them about 4 to 6 feet inside, and had a nice intimate moment. Again, there's no accents anywhere. The light behind them is from a window or door, a door that has a window in it, something like that. And if you look at the light on them is perfect. We used to edit with more black, so her hair and his suit are super black. I don't like that anymore. But basically, lighting-wise, let's skip this shot. I don't like this image anymore. Light fall-off concept is important. So the closer the subject is to the source, the less gradual light will fall off. That's what I touched on earlier. This is where we said the further subject is from the light source, light falls off more gradual. You could do this with what my mentor had me do one day was with a light meter. I don't know if you guys remember those. If you ever shot film, you wore it around your neck like a tie. It was so commonly used in the film days. Basically, it's just a meter, light meter. We went in, he had me go into a tunnel and mark every, I think it was 5 or 6 feet, and I wrote down how the light would fall off, and you could see it was exponential. 4 to 6 feet is the happy zone. So most of the time, about 4 to 6 feet from a window, 4 to 6 feet from the entrance of a tunnel, 4 to 6 feet from the entrance of a cave. This is the area that it's close enough where there's good light on them, it's directional enough. And that 460 feet does change a little bit depending on what type of area you're using. If it's a cave, how large the cave is. But that's pretty much my go-to. I go 4 to 6 feet, have somebody stand there, and then look if they need to go deeper in the cave. So look for natural reflectors and interesting existing artificial light. So one thing I used to consider myself a total ambient shooter. It wasn't because I preferred ambient over flash, it's because I was scared to use my flash. And so for a long time, I would avoid the flash as much as possible. It took me quite a few years to get comfortable with flash, and I'm glad that I did now. I'm glad I am now very comfortable with flash, because there's shots that you can create with flash, especially the nighttime photos that we'll talk about at the very end of this can only be created with flash, off-camera flash. So basically, let's don't forget to dish your flashes off when it's possible. Yep. So this is a really cool photo. This is really good friends from college are in the shot, including the groom. And you can see the light that they're walking through is created from a large building where the sun is reflecting off this giant, probably 30-story plus, maybe 40-story building, and created this strip of reflector light. And they are walking in it right there. You can see the harsh shadow, or not the harsh, you can see the shadows of their feet and their legs, and you get an idea, and you can see behind and in front, it's darker. So that's from a natural reflection off the window. And this shot was not planned. I've walked this street 100 times right here in downtown San Diego. But I was walking, I think I was chimping at the time, looking at images I just captured somewhere, and then the light hit me in the face like a slap in the face, and I looked up and said, oh my God, there's a giant reflection. This is amazing. And it was covering across the entire sidewalk. And it looks like a movie scrim, or it looks like something like a big production type shot. And so, yeah, so these things, they happen, they're everywhere. It's just being aware of it and seeing it and making sure how to utilize it best. Not going to go into words of WPPS for sure, but basically the light on them is it's coming from the photo booth. They had this ghetto photo booth from a computer, had a couple lights, and so you could have blasted them with flash, bounce the flash on the brick behind for some nice warmer light, or just turn the flash off, up your ISO a little bit, and then use the light coming. The light coming off them is coming from a good direction compared to the camera axis line. So it's coming just about 45 degrees to camera left, probably 30 degrees. And then when you do that, you just get a nice natural feel to it as opposed to using flash. So anytime you could dish the flash, I try to. Another example, this is actually the same couple as that first image of the guys walking, the Reservoir Dog shot, and pretty much in the same area, just around the corner, in fact. And so after doing that shot, we did a few more photos, and then we came a little bit later, and right before we went into the reception, we saw this shot. And the key to the shot, it's really tough to shoot from the light coming directly above, as we mentioned with new light. But if you have her angle her head up and get light in her face, it is not as bad. And there's not really too many ways to do that besides having him whisper in her ear some sort of sweet nothing, and then have her look up and laugh. And she looked up pretty naturally here, and then there's some great dusk blue coming on the reflection of the building, and then we're color balancing for that warm light, so you get that blues go a little bit deeper right there. So, yeah, another shot. Oh, my favorite bride in the world. Just kidding. It's my least favorite bride in the world. So this shot is cool. The light's coming from above, and really just utilizing just light coming from straight above. And how you do that, looking up, how to lay down, exposing for her face. It's really easy to overexpose the subject's face in the situation, so you have to watch out for the exposure. And yeah, this is a decent photo there. Love this shot. So this was in a theater in Pasadena, and you can see that there's multiple lights. You can see the different circles on the ground. So I think there was 3, maybe 4 spotlights. Obviously, the one spotlight from behind, which is in the frame, but then there's a few other ones that are lighting the couple as they do their first dance. So I didn't know about this. It was a normal reception room, and I had my flash on, the camera ready to bounce it off a wall, and then the lights turned off, and then the spotlights came on. So in the fly, I had to turn my flash off. I had to get my settings dialed in. Things were a lot brighter. You can see the background lights, how it's so dark. So these are things that you guys have, I did on the fly in the moment. But again, ditch the flash. Here, if I tried to light them with flash, it would have ruined the photo. I mean, completely ruined it, in my opinion. You just need a natural light of the spotlights is the way to go. So yeah, open area fill flash. Oh, I hate it. This is I do the same settings every single time. I use my 24-70 at 7.1 or f8 ISO 100. My shutter speed of 1/200th of a second, which is my sync speed, the fastest shutter speed that my camera will allow, without going into high speed mode. With my flash on manual mode, usually at full power. I use a battery pack for faster recycle times, because if you have your flash at full power, it takes too long to recycle, and I like to shoot a few images per pose. This is for family photos usually. Unfortunately, oftentimes the iconic spot of the venue is in this type of light. It's not always in the area where there's good backlight or open shade. It's out. It's a fountain. It's a structure. It's a statue. It's something else iconic that in the middle of things. The venues often put these iconic things out in the open, so they are standing out. But that leaves us out just with terrible harsh light, and so you got to use the open area fill flash, again, off camera preferred. Sweet light. So this is something that my mentor pounded in my head so many times. Sweet light is the light that occurs when the sun dips beneath the horizon, whether the horizon is us in California, the ocean, or if you're in the mountains, or if you're in Palm Springs in California, or anywhere out east, when the sun dips behind the mountain completely, it turns into sweet light. Sweet light is incredible. We always try to utilize sweet light. So the sun dips completely below the horizon or mountaintop. It doesn't last very long. 5 to 7 minutes is actually kind of generous. If it's behind a mountain, it's longer, because you still have depending on how high the mountain is, you still have that time where the sun is not set completely; it's just set behind the mountain. But if it goes beneath and below the horizon, let's say at the beat, you have 5 to 7 minutes. It's the world's largest softbox. It's incredible. The entire sky is lighting you. It's coming from a direction from above. It's soft. It's so, so beautiful. The color exposure changes rapidly in this period. So it's about, I would say, every minute you're going to be dropping a third stop. I mean, it's changing quick. Color gets really wonky too, so you got to watch out if you're shooting Kelvin. Sometimes I do throw it on auto white balance at this point. I don't like to, but sometimes it's too much to keep track of the Kelvin scale when I'm trying to change the exposure and deal with the subject, and only have to do it in 5 to 7 minutes. So it's pretty much the only time that I'll throw the camera into auto white balance mode, just because the changes happen so rapidly. It does get really wonky. Right at the end of it, it gets crazy colors, and sometimes it's hard to edit. So here's some sweet light. This is a wedding I did in Jamaica, cool wedding years ago, and I'm in the pool with it wide open at really high ISOs. I think 6400, I believe. There's a little bit of grain, not too bad, a little bit. And this is sweet light. This is it. This is some of the best light you could ever have all day long. Really, I look forward to this. Again, it's somewhat similar to directional open shade. In the sense that there's not a lot of accent lights. There's not that angelic glow about it. It's soft. It's just beautiful. It's clean. It's user friendly as well. So this is this is sweet light. Again, same sort of thing. It's got a nice little vintagey filter to fit the mode of the car. And yeah, right here it's sweet light just after sunset out in Temecula. And it's just soft light here. There's not a lot to talk about because it's just all around good. I mean, there's If you're going to talk about it, you just talk about there's no harsh shadows, there's no blown highlights. Everything, there's detail pretty much everywhere. Every part of this image is just really textbook good. Late Dusk Sky. So this is something that I discovered because I'm a Kelvin shooter, where I changed to Kelvin. Well, I've always loved the deep shade of ocean blue that the sky becomes right before night. It's one of my favorite parts, personally, not photo related. Just I love being outside, drinking a glass of wine or beer at this right before it becomes night, late dusk is probably the best way to describe it. It has a really awesome deep blue shade, and to enhance this effect, you have to use a warm. You don't have to. It's much preferred to use a warm colored light source. So when I say warm, I mean you have the tungsten light source that's a little bit yellow-orange. You could throw a filter on your flash and make it warmer. And that, you'll see the images here. Warm gels on your flash is critical. I just said that. You have to adjust your Kelvin setting accordingly to achieve the deepest blue in the sky. So on your camera, if you haven't played with Kelvin settings, start messing around with it. It's a great tool to decrease time editing, but in this situation, you really can't even get the shot unless you know what you're looking for, as far as if you set the Kelvin to about 3200 or whatever the light source is, the warm light source. 3200 Kelvin is about the light source temperature of incandescent light. So your traditional light bulb in your lamp at your house, well, now they're LED and now they're different. But think back when you were a kid, that traditional yellowish orange light coming from your light bulb in your lamp at your house, that is 3200 Kelvin. Nowadays, with LED becoming the new thing, we're getting not quite so warm or getting cooler lights at our house for the most part. But anyway, so this is, I think I only have one or maybe two examples of it. Here we go, and this is what I mean. This is that deep blue. This is not saturated in Photoshop or Lightroom. This is not edited. This raw image looks just like this. Pull the vibrance just a little bit, but some people might say it looks like it was crazy edited, and that's fine. It does look like that. But that deep blue has just such a magical feel about it. I love this time of day. And so we have, for this image, we did not use flash. I actually used an LED handheld, basically a video light to light them. And on my video light, you could change the Kelvin. You can make it warm or cooler. I made it warm. Again, like I said, you want to have a warm light source. But the light source on them is a warm video light, as well as the light next to them. So that's creating probably most of the light, actually. That's probably the majority of the light that's standing between the two light posts. And there's just a little bit of fill of my video light coming in to fill the shadows in, so their faces aren't, the front of them aren't too dark. And then we're just basically exposure and color Kelvin scale for them, and you get those deep blue skies and up top there. Nice shot. Okay, so this is what is my favorite thing right now, nighttime romantics. Romantics are just portraits, so we color portraits. And how they came about really was I was inspired by Nick Manzel, or other photographers for our studio. He started pulling these nighttime romantic shots that were blowing my mind. They were so incredible when he was coming back and showing me, and it was really inspiring. And like I said earlier, I was a little scared to use flash, well, besides the standard at the reception. I guess the way to phrase it properly is I was scared to use flash creatively. I just didn't know how to. I wasn't good at it, and so therefore I basically shied away from it. And after seeing some of Nick's work for the nighttime romantic portraits, it forced me to start thinking that I need to get more comfortable with this. Look for existing artificial light sources that offer visual interests. Rain. Okay, so it doesn't rain a whole lot, and we're in the biggest drought, I think, in 1,300 years. I saw on the Daily Show last night. They were making fun of that in California. So it never rains, but it did rain last August. There's an image we'll look at in a moment that is, if you live around weather, rain, snow, anything like that, they're phenomenal. Fog. I mean, any type of weather is so awesome to use if you start using some flash-off cameras behind them, backlight, and you get some incredible shots. Backlight's unbelievable. Fog looks dramatic. Fountains aren't shabby either. So anyway, our nighttime shots usually tend to be fairly wide. We're not shooting too tight for most of these. We want to really exaggerate the look and the lighting. And so you'll see here, I think this, take risks. Yeah, always take risks for these. These are, for me, icing on the cake most of the time. Sometimes I don't get a lot of phenomenal shots at sunset or any other various reason why things that can't go that awesome. And so I use the nighttime portraits as a clutch. Or a crutch, excuse me, a crutch to blow them away with some incredibly artistic photos that I might not get earlier. Now, if I get some great artistic shots from earlier, then it's icing on the cake. So I think it's really saved the day, and clients that could have maybe not been perfectly happy, they get a couple shots from the nighttime romantics that are mind-blowing. And then they walk away with a really great feeling about everything. So these things have transformed our studio without a doubt. We plan for 2 to 3 different nighttime shots per wedding on average. It's pretty basic. Look around. I don't want to take them away from the reception too long, but usually 2 or 3 I could set them up, or at least have an idea of what I'm going to do with settings. I don't have to have them sitting there outside for a while. So this is the range shot I mentioned. So probably my #1 favorite image of all time. I can't think of an image I like better that I've taken as far as work goes. It's incredible. It's got everything. It's got only one light back there. That's it. It's just one light and a little bit of sprinkle rain in August. This happened last August in Temecula. August in San Diego, it never rains. I don't think it's ever rained ever in the history of the world in August before in San Diego, but it did for this wedding. And it was a little bit of a bummer for the bride because it affected her ceremony to some degree, but then she came away with this image. And this is just incredible. So that's all just little raindrops up in the sky. I had my assistant stand way back to capture. It was really a light rain. It looks like it's really raining fairly decently hard. It was a light sprinkle, just barely you could even feel it. But the assistant stood far enough back to capture every little raindrop in the sky for about 30 feet. And that's how that image is captured. And it looks incredible. Another nighttime portrait. This is a photo we did on a boat called the Hornblower in San Diego. And just coming back, this is the last photo of the day. And this job was basically done. We're coming back to dock to leave. I said, let's just get the couple to stand right in front of this boat. I positioned the flash. I pointed it not towards them, but away from them to light up that front part of the boat, because I needed a lot of contrast since it's such a wide-angle shot. I didn't want them to get lost, so I wanted to make sure that they stood out. And so I chose to point the flash away from them, towards the front of the ship, to light that whole area and make that really bright. And then in his dark suit, they stand out a whole lot. So even though it's a wide-angle shot and there's kind of a lot going on as far as distractions go, they clearly pop out of this image. And without that, if they were just if they were darker, it would really lose dramatic effect. But since it is so bright, and choosing to use the flash the other direction, that really, I believe, made the shot some special. Video is so crappy, it just doesn't look like anything cool. And we use these curtains. These curtains were open, and we just pulled them in. They do place here. And when you throw a light back there and shoot through these curtains, they light up a little bit and creates all that texture and that cool effect with the shadow at the bottom where you have the 2 lines pointing to her. And so the backlight here, this wasn't even at night. This was, you can see the background, how there's a little bit of light from that window on the other side of the room. This was like late dusk. Yeah, late dusk, I believe. And we were done shooting outside. We'd done a bunch of stuff, so I said, let's go in here and do something a little different. So this is a fantastic bridal portrait. I'm going to have to speak. This is a cool photo. Again, it's such a cool photo. This was not photoshopped. This completely occurred in camera. I can never replicate those little dots. I don't know how that happened. This was a groom from a previous wedding who referred this wedding So I asked him first, I said, "Are you drive tonight?" He said, "No." So I said, "Okay, good, because you're going to get beer all over you. Is that cool?" He said, "Sure." So I had him shake up that Stella, his favorite beer, spray it in his face, and one light, assistant holding it behind you. You can kind of see her over his right shoulder, left shoulder, or right there on the right-hand side. You see the outline of her shirt. And, yeah, just chose to light this with the water. So if we don't have rain, we can create really cool water-related shots, you know, and this is a neat photo. Using water and backlight, classic, beautiful sunset in the background in Coronado. Waited for a wave to come, and that light traveled through the wave to make this image so dynamic. In the outline of them with the backlight, this is, again, an assistant standing back there, this little guy from Berkeley. He's this little small dude, and he's back there freezing his butt off. This isn't winter, this is December. The water's pretty cold here, at least that day it was. And so, yeah, again, that is not the wedding day. This is their post-day session. So this is a wedding client, but on a different day, because she's in her wedding dress there, getting wet. This is a classic nighttime portrait because this venue is okay, not that fantastic at all, and the photos from her day were just solid. But then we got this shot and another nighttime shot that blew her away, and so she looks at this image and she can't really feel anything but complete love and just feel how artistic we were able to capture her day when she sees an image like this. So there's two lights being used. There's clearly the obvious backlight back there lighting the bamboo forest. Again, I love bamboo. I said that earlier. Love bamboo. Looks so cool. And then there's another, that little LED video light that I mentioned is lighting that where I'm standing for the photo. So yeah, so we just have a little bit more light, that texture from that plant, and then the backlight, and they're dark, they're silhouetted a little bit. I like the silhouette look, especially for the nighttime portraits. I'm not delivering all images to clients where they're always silhouetted. These are just these are the icing on the cake. These are the additional shots. We're doing all the traditional shots where they're lit well with backlight or open shade earlier. This is just fun. Not really executed that well. Great idea. I feel like the shot could be done a million times better somehow. But we just shot through this leaf and with the shadows. And yeah, I don't want to talk about that image. This is whatever. Canon lens. It has a really interesting lens flare. It's really funky. You can see what's going on there. It looks wild. But yeah, this is just a lot of lines, a lot of things going on. That giant purple orb is weird. But again, this is artistic. I mean, you can't look at this shot. You might not love it. You might even hate it for some reason, but you can't say this isn't artistic. And the clients, they loved it. And this is a really cool shot. So again, nighttime portrait. This is a few feet from the reception. So we just set the light on the ground for a test shot with a guest or the second shooter, dialed it in, grabbed the couple, had them kiss each other, snapped a couple photos. They went back and partied at the reception. Took all of a couple minutes, and then this really complemented the rest of her photos. Yeah, so this wedding, okay, yeah. So again, one light behind them. There's quite a bit of reflection happening, and so it looks like there might be a light or a reflector on them, the front of them, because it's not like true silhouette at all. There's a little bit of light, and that's just a little bit of balance happening. A lot of editing with this one, a lot of texture being brought out. We're putting a blue. No, actually, we're not putting a filter on the flash, but we're setting the Kelvin to make the light come blue, or the scene to be blue. That's again back with that Kelvin stuff. But yeah, you see that texture, and this is a great couple right here.
Hey Brian, do you have any tricks when remembering Kelvin on the spot?
Yeah, there's basically just about 6 or 7 numbers to memorize. That's it. And I can tell you them right now if you guys want. Should I say that, Kevin?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so candlelight is 2500 Kelvin. So if you're using candlelight for some reason as a light source, 2500. If you're using incandescent lights, just the standard bulbs that orange yellow that I mentioned, that's 3200 Kelvin. If you're using fluorescent lights, those are the long light tube that you would find in your school, your classroom at school, or warehouses. Or else we have those long bulbs, those classic bulbs. That's 4,300 Kelvin. And then when you are using just middle of the day, normal daylight is, it ranges, but you could say 5,200 Kelvin, 52 to 5,500 Kelvin is normal daylight. Then flash is 6,000 Kelvin. And cloudy day, like mild clouds, is also 6,000 Kelvin. If you have heavy clouds, it's more like 7,000 to 8,000 Kelvin. So those really deep, heavy clouds, that's going to be more 7,000, 8,000. It's just like a little bit of clouds here and there, or just a real thin cloud cover, it's going to be 6,000. Same thing with flash. Again, flash is 6,000. So, and there's situations that fall in between those Kelvin numbers. But if you start and just memorize those simple numbers and then realize that you might have to go up or down a few hundred degrees here or there, over time you'll get used to it. It's cumbersome at first. When you first switch to it, if you've never done it, you'll think this is not worth it, this is cumbersome. But if you talk to people that have switched and you ask them, hey, are you happy you switched? I haven't had one person that I talked to that has been not satisfied that they switched to shooting Kelvin. It saves time, which is money, and you can create some shots and have a better understanding of light in general. Just for multiple reasons, it's good. So that's basically.
Is that something your mentor pushed a lot?
No, he didn't. That was something that when I was shooting JPEG, I was late to shoot RAW. When everybody went RAW, I, for some dumb reason, was hesitant. Sometimes I'm not comfortable with change, or it wasn't back then. So when I was shooting JPEG, with JPEG you don't have the range that you do with RAW to change the color. With RAW, you can take a photo at 2,500 Kelvin and change it to 6,000 Kelvin, and it's fine. You could do it. But RAW is amazing like that. JPEG wasn't the case. You have a small range. So since there was a small range with JPEG, and I shot JPEG for longer than I should have, I thought, well, it has to be perfect because I don't have the option to change. I'm not a RAW shooter. But even when I switched to RAW, I was so comfortable and I saw the benefits of it, I kept it up. So I still do it today. Does that make sense, Kevin?
Yeah, okay, definitely.
Okay, cool. A couple more images here, I think. You can just see shadow, cool photo, backlight, one light, basic. Real quick, guys, I only have about 3-4 minutes left. Chrisman lighting style. There's a studio that I find lots of inspiration in, based in San Francisco and Los Angeles, that I saw speak at last year's WPPI, the Chrisman studio. And they did something that I started really liking and I was experimenting with. They basically do a unique look to their photos, and I have to mention it, I have to give them full credit because I have never seen anybody do it like them. They expose for the brightest part of the scene and then light your subjects accordingly. And it makes sense when you look at this image. So this image is a bride just next to a window. And this is just an artistically shot and posed photo where you are exposing for just the highlights on her nose and cheek and a little bit on her chest, right? So you're exposing for just the brightest parts, and now it falls completely dark, right? Everything's like kind of a dark mess. But I think it looks awesome. And you mix this in with the classic shots where she's facing the window and it's window light. You mix this in, and it really adds an artistic element to it. The next shot is probably even a better example, where the brightest parts of the scene are the light bulbs. So these floating globes right here in the window ceiling up top there. So then we're just putting them in and lighting them so that we essentially are just taking test shots of all these bright spots, getting these floating balls, these light balls around, lighting them and filling in enough light on them to make it appropriate. So guys, that's all the time we have. That's pretty much everything we covered right there that I wanted to talk about. So a little bit of an abrupt end there, but thanks for your time. Thanks for listening. A lot of information. Is there any questions, Kevin, that people have so far?
I just want to put one slide out there, and then I only have a couple of questions. But I'm going to change the screen sharing back over to myself.
Okay.
Can you see my screen?
I could, yes.
Okay, cool. So real quick, before we go to the live Q&A, just want to let you guys know we're offering unlimited brag books, which include no image size restrictions on your images, free backup other images, and storage for up to 5 years. So when we say it's unlimited, we truly mean it. The yearly digital brag book subscription is normally $149 for the year, yet we're offering a $50 webinar discount for everyone attending this webinar. So this basically comes out to about $9 a month for unlimited brag books. Just wanted to throw that out there for you guys so you had it before we left. And with that, I'm just going to go over it. Now, the only question I think I'm getting here is there's a lot of questions about the app you mentioned in the beginning that you use to get your camera settings.
Say that one more time.
The app you use, I guess, on your phone. What was the name?
Oh, it's not even. It might not even be an app. I think it might even come with the phone. I have an old. I think it's iPhone 4 or 4S. It's a few versions back. It's just called Compass. So if I go to my phone, it's in there. I don't think I ever installed it. I believe it just came with it. Maybe I did. I might have. I honestly don't remember. It's a few years old. Basically, it's just a compass, and you have to do a little calibration. You circle the phone around. I'm doing it right now, my phone, and then it'll just point you where's west, and that's all I'm really concerned about is where the sun's setting. If you're on the East Coast, well, I guess it'd be the same thing. No matter where you are, you want to know where the sun's going to set because you want to know where you're going to position people later, and whether you can use backlight or where you're going to maybe have to use open shade or fill flash. So yeah, it's just called Compass. So you may have to go to the App Store. It might even be on your phone already. It's a cool little thing. I use it all the time, basically every event. Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Let's see here. Let me see if there's any other questions. And so anyone that, just to kind of refresh, anyone that is in the Dallas area, I'm seeing a couple people responding. I will be in touch with you actually after the webinar to get more details about how we can set up the scholarship. If you guys have any other questions regarding that, please feel free to email me at webinar@collages.net. By a show of hands, how much did everyone like the webinar? We'd love getting feedback, so use the hand feature. Let us know how it's going. And oh, they are blowing up. Everyone's saying thank you, Brian. I don't know if you can see these, but lastly, the brag book special that we're offering is DBB Special 99. That'll give you a year of unlimited brag books for $99. For anyone that may have missed the beginning or any part of the webinar, we are recording this, so it will be available later on. Probably tomorrow, I would say, if not tomorrow, Monday at the latest. So keep an eye out on your email if you want to watch the recording again. Brian, I just want to say thank you again for taking the time out of your day to do this and share your knowledge of lighting and passing the word on so everyone else can benefit.
Sure. Thank you, Kevin, for allowing this platform to be free and to I see there's about 101 people listening, and the fact that you guys are offering this, and if you guys out there aren't using the brag books, definitely consider it. I was going to say this in the beginning, and we got quickly into the material, but the brag books have been fantastic for our studio. So if you haven't signed up for brag books, do it. They've been a great treat. Clients love it. It's such a cool thing to have their own app, and they feel really special. And if you're not a collages.net customer, talk to me, email me, or call me. My email is brian@abmphoto.com. My cell phone's 949-463-3038. I can tell you all about the great things that collages.net has to offer with hosting as well as albums.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian.
Sure.
Okay, well, that concludes the webinar. Hope everyone has a great day. Brian, hope you have a great day as well.
Thanks, Kevin.
And I will hopefully see you guys at a future webinar that we have. We actually have a lot coming up, so keep an ear or keep an eye out for some emails from us about future webinars. Yeah, have a great day, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
All right, thanks, everybody. See you later.
Thanks, Brian.